Hi everybody, today I'm going to show you how to use a clear glaze, and basically it is a glass forming crystal clear coating that you put over a piece of pottery. It can be glossy or it can be matte, but either way what it does is it seals your color into the pot and it also brightens the color of the pot. So I've mixed up some clear glaze here, and what I've done is I've actually screened this through a very fine screen to be able to get any chunks out of it, and the bigger chunks kind of break them down so that they are fine particles. If you start getting a chunk on the piece when you fire it, you'll actually see that on the piece of pottery. So the question is a lot like, gosh, it's so hard to get in here and brush and be able to clean it. Be able to glaze on the inside. I have a little secret for you. You can actually pour it into the inside, kind of roll it around to get the inside coated, and then just slowly pour it out so that everything gets all the way up to the rim covered with the clear glaze. And I also like to give it a little dip afterwards. We'll come back later and do the outside. Basically the system is inside first, outside later, but you don't do the outside until it dries. So I'm going to leave it out in the sun for a few hours. You can even wait till the next day. And the reason why you don't glaze it all at once is the clay right now is like a sponge. And so when the water is in there from the first glazing, that water is filling up that sponge. And if you've ever tried to be able to get more water back into a sponge without squeezing it out first, you can't do it. So we're gonna let all that water evaporate, and we'll come back and put the water in later. So we talked about how to do the inside of a pot. Now, we've already done the inside of the pot here, and then there was colored slips on the inside. As you can see, it is now white. A lot of beginners, when they first do their glaze, they freak out. They're like, I just spent all that time doing a color and whatnot, and now it's covered white, I gotta do it again. Like, no, what happens is, when this gets to 2,000 degrees, it goes clear. Because remember, glaze is like glass. And what is glass made out of? Silica, sand. And if you were just to have liquid sand on there, it would be opaque. But the heat causes, and some fluxes in there, cause that glass to melt and become transparent. So this is how we're going to do the outside on a simple bowl. You always want to make sure that you stir up your glaze so that any of the stuff that's settled on the bottom goes through, or goes throughout it. And some of those things actually are important for the mix, because if you don't have enough flux, it won't melt. If you don't have enough silica in there, it won't have a glass coating. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take this and dip it. And so we were at the point now where the glaze has gotten so low it doesn't fill up the whole thing. So I'm just going to finish up with some brushwork. And again, remember, we're dabbing, because this glaze, the colored slips on there, have not been fired yet. So if you start moving your brush around with liquid, it's gonna cause those colors to bleed and run. So by dabbing it on there, it just kind of soaks in and then seals that glaze in, or actually seals those slips in, and then we're good to go. When we were doing glazing, I was dipping and pouring, and then just naturally when this stuff starts flowing, it's going to go down around the foot area. Now, if this glaze, which is glass, heats up, goes molten, sits on a kiln shelf, when it cools, that glass is fusing it to the kiln shelf. So, all this stuff that got on it when I glazed it, we'll take a sponge, we're going to take just some clear water, and go along and just sponge off any of that excess glaze that's on the bottom. Now you would do this for any glaze whatsoever. You do not want color glaze, clear glaze. Now you could have an underglaze, because that doesn't have a glass former in it. So you don't have to worry about the underglaze fusing onto the kiln shelf. So that is called dry footing. I'm going to do this other one too. As you can see, it's not as bad. That other one was completely covered, but it's just when I was dipping it, some of it dripped down. So we're just gonna get rid of these little drips there. And that way, you got yourself a nice clean bottom that will not stick to the kiln shelf. So now, I'm gonna teach you how to use a brush for specific areas if you don't want the whole piece glazed. You know, maybe I want areas that are matte and some that are glossy. So on this mask, it has not been fired with the colored slips on there. And remember that a slip is liquid clay that has mason stain in it, so that when it goes up past 2000 degrees, it'll keep its color. So what this clear glaze will do in certain areas, it'll actually brighten those colors. So I've already gone through and I've done this eyeball because, you know, eyeballs are glossy from moisture. And then I've already done the tongue for the same reason, you know, saliva. So now I'm just gonna bop around all these different parts of the mask. Here, another set of eyes. And then we've got another set of eyes. Be careful not to get it too drippy. Use gravity to my advantage. And you can see this glaze is just getting absorbed by that porous pottery. It's just sucking that moisture right in. Now, this is meant to be like a water scene. So I'm going to increase the size of my brush so I can cover a greater area in a shorter amount of time. Remember, you want to try to use your time wisely, because time is short and you want to make the most of it. Now, the trees above it, I don't want shiny. I'm gonna go around. I've got some eyeballs I can do there. I don't know, maybe I'll put the sun with a gloss in some of these windows. This is gonna be a tough decision here too, whether I have those areas glossy or shiny. I'm sorry, glossy or matte. And these are all decisions I'm gonna make more over time. I'm not gonna do it all at once. I'm gonna think about it. So, that's another way you can use your clear glaze. Hopefully that helps you. Hopefully you're inspired. Get out there and make some art.